After 12 years of marriage, my husband left me for a younger woman, confident I'd fall apart without him. What he didn't expect, me reclaiming my life, finding strength, and exposing his lies in the most unexpected way. It was a Wednesday morning when it all came crashing down. I had just returned from my yoga class, still feeling the peaceful afterglow of an hour spent in downward dog and warrior poses. I'd come home to find a letter on the kitchen counter, the kind of letter I would have never expected to see. Adam, my husband of 12 years, had never been one to write me letters, unless they were sweet anniversary notes or love letters. But this wasn't one of those. As I unfolded the crisp white paper, the words blurred in front of me. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. I don't want this life with you. The rest of the letter was a blur. I couldn't focus. I should have seen it coming, shouldn't I? The signs were subtle, small things at first. A few months ago, he had started working longer hours at the office, often coming home well after I'd already gone to bed. First, I thought nothing of it. He was just a workaholic, always striving to climb the corporate ladder. But then, he started spending more time with friends on weekends. I wasn't invited. It didn't seem unusual at first. Adam and I had always kept our separate hobbies, but something felt off. There was this distance between us now, like an invisible wall that neither of us knew how to break through. I picked up my phone, trembling. I tried calling him 3 times in a row. No answer. It was as if he had already made up his mind and was moving forward with his new life without even telling me in person. No goodbye, no warning. Instead of feeling angry, I felt numb. How could he do this to me? After everything we had been through together, he had been my partner through thick and thin. We had built a life together, shared goals, dreams, and even our deepest fears. We had no children, but we'd always talked about starting a family one day. I couldn't believe it was all falling apart just like that. I sat down on the couch, staring at the empty space beside me where he used to sit. How had I missed the signs? Was I that blind? Later that day, I went to work and tried to focus, but my mind kept wandering back to the letter. It was like a knot tightening in my chest. During my lunch break, I texted Adam, asking him to meet me after work so we could talk. I didn't want to believe that this was happening. There had to be some explanation. Maybe he was just stressed. Maybe he was going through something. I just needed to hear it from him. But when I got home, I knew something was wrong. The apartment looked different. It was the same place we'd lived in for the last 6 years, our little sanctuary. But tonight, it felt empty, hollow. I was cleaning the kitchen, trying to distract myself, when I noticed the small things. His watch, the expensive cologne, the gym clothes he'd left behind, things I had never paid attention to before. That's when I found the text messages. It wasn't just one, it was an entire thread between Adam and someone named Jess. The messages were full of inside jokes, late-night plans, and flirty exchanges. The last one made my heart stop. I can't wait to move in with you this weekend. We can finally start our life together. I felt like I was suffocating. This wasn't just some office fling. This was serious. He was already planning to leave me for her, and I had been completely blind to it. I picked up the phone, dialing Adam's number again. This time, he picked up on the first ring. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I'm with Jess," he replied, his tone flat and distant. "I'm moving in with her. This isn't working anymore. You're just, not enough for me." The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I had never been prepared for this. Never once imagined that the man I trusted with my heart would betray me in the worst way possible. I don't understand, I said, struggling to find the words. We've been through so much together. We've built this life. How can you just throw it all away? "I'm sorry," he said, his voice lacking any real emotion. "But I found someone who makes me feel alive again. Someone who gets me. Someone who actually cares about me. You're just too much. You don't understand me anymore. This is over." And with that, he hung up. Just like that, the life we'd built was gone. The next few days were a blur. I was a walking zombie, going through the motions of work and daily life, but nothing felt real. My heart ached with every step I took. I didn't even know where to begin. How do you recover from something like this? Then my sister Ella came over, and I broke down in her arms. She had always been there for me through all the ups and downs of life, but this was something different. She had never seen me like this. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, rubbing my back as I sobbed uncontrollably. "But you're strong. You're going to get through this, and I'll be here for you every step of the way." Ella was my rock, and it was because of her that I started to pull myself together. The next week was the hardest. I went through the motions, but my heart wasn't in anything. Adam had moved out, no goodbye, no explanation, just an empty space where his things used to be. And Jess, I had to know more about her. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see her face. The stranger who had taken my place, I couldn't shake the image of her, no matter how hard I tried. One evening, I found myself scrolling through social media, looking at Adam's profile. There she was, tagged in all of his recent posts. Jess, with her long blonde hair and perfect smile, always beside him in fancy restaurants or on exotic vacations. The comments were full of love, admiration, and compliments. It made me sick to my stomach. The worst part was, I had never been the jealous type. Adam had always been the one person I trusted completely, but here I was, obsessively looking through their photos, feeling like I was losing myself. I needed answers. But what was the point? He had made it clear he had no intentions of coming back. So I decided to focus on me, on finding my strength in the face of all this. I called Ella again, feeling like I was on the edge of losing control. She knew me too well. I need to do something, I told her. I need to take back my life. You will, she said, reassuring me. But first, let's take a step back and think. Maybe it's time you start looking out for yourself. I knew Ella was right. As much as I hated Adam for what he did, I couldn't keep letting him control my thoughts. I had to move forward, and the first step was starting with my finances. I sat at my kitchen table going through our financial records. There were so many holes. Missing credit card statements, unexplained withdrawals, charges I didn't recognize. I knew Adam had always managed the finances, but I had trusted him. Like an idiot. Now I had to fix this mess. One of the first things I noticed was a strange pattern of spending. Several charges for fancy dinners at restaurants near Jess's neighborhood. He had been taking her out, using our joint account. I felt the bile rise in my throat as I scrolled through the receipts. How could he do this? How could he spend our money, our future, on her? I immediately called my lawyer, asking for advice on freezing our assets. It's a good move, she said, but you need to act fast. We can stop him from taking more than what's rightfully yours. The following days were a whirlwind. I froze our joint credit cards, opened an individual account for myself, and began setting up a plan to take control of my financial future. I wasn't going to let Adam leave me with nothing. If he thought I would fall apart, he was mistaken. This was my turning point. I even set up an appointment with a financial advisor. We'll get you back on track, the advisor said, looking through the paperwork I'd brought. You're doing the right thing by taking charge of your finances. For the first time in weeks, I felt something that resembled hope. The weight of Adam's betrayal still clung to me, but there was a spark. Something inside me was shifting. I didn't want to be a victim. I wasn't going to be. A few weeks later, I landed a new job. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a step forward, a new beginning. I had been looking for months, sending out resumes, attending interviews, and trying to piece together a new life after everything I had known crumbled. The job wasn't anything special, customer service, answering phones, but it gave me a sense of purpose. I had something to focus on, something to help me start healing. I was still living at Ella's house, but it was starting to feel more like home. I spent my days working, my evenings sorting through my life, organizing everything from my finances to my goals. Slowly but surely, I was rebuilding myself, one step at a time. Then one afternoon, while I was on my lunch break, I ran into Adam. I hadn't expected to see him again so soon, but there he was, standing in the elevator of my office building, looking as if he had just stepped out of a corporate ad. He was wearing a sharp suit, his hair slicked back, and he had that smug smile on his face. His eyes locked with mine, and for a moment I saw a flicker of recognition. A moment where he realized this wasn't the broken woman he had left behind. Hey, he said as if it was all so casual. I didn't know you worked here. I do now, I said, my voice firm, surprising even myself. What are you doing here? I just had a meeting with one of my clients. You know how it is? He replied, avoiding eye contact. So, how have you been? Everything okay? I could feel his eyes scanning me, taking in my appearance. Nothing extravagant, just the simple work attire I had become used to. But there was something different. I stood a little taller, smiled a little wider. I wasn't the same person he had walked out on. Actually, I said, not breaking eye contact, I've been better than okay. Things are going really well, actually. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite place. Maybe regret? Maybe surprise? But the moment passed quickly, and he cleared his throat. I'm glad to hear it, he muttered, his voice lacking the usual conviction. I didn't say anything else. The elevator reached the ground floor, and as the doors opened, I stepped out without another word. But as I walked away, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. He wasn't going to break me. I was stronger now, more confident in my own skin. I didn't need him, and I sure as hell didn't need to prove anything to him. A month later, things had settled into a new routine. I was living in my own apartment now, a modest space, but one that felt like mine. I had surrounded myself with plants, little trinkets, and memories of a life I was starting to reclaim. Every day, I learned something new. How to cook, how to manage my own finances, how to handle life without Adam. One evening, as I sat on my couch watching a cooking tutorial on YouTube, my phone buzzed. A message from Adam. You don't know what you're doing. It read, you can't make it without me. You'll see. I didn't even hesitate. I blocked his number and turned my phone off. The next morning, my lawyer called. Adam had hired a new attorney, and they were pushing for mediation. Apparently, he was starting to get nervous, realizing the mess he had left behind. But I wasn't intimidated anymore. I had already won. Not in the way he thought, but in the way that mattered most. I had found myself again. The mediation day finally arrived. I wasn't expecting a dramatic showdown, but a part of me had hoped that Adam would at least show some kind of remorse, maybe a little bit of the man I had once loved. Instead, what I saw in that conference room was a hollow shell of the person I used to know. He sat there in a sharp suit, his face carefully neutral, his eyes avoiding mine. Across from him, his lawyer was whispering something under his breath, probably trying to make it look like he still had control. I could feel the tension in the air, but I wasn't shaking. I was calm. Ready? Let's begin, our mediator said, cutting through the thick silence. We're here to discuss the terms of your divorce. I know both of you want to avoid a drawn-out process, so let's be respectful and work toward an agreement. I looked at Adam, his smug face not showing any signs of self-awareness. He probably thought this was just a formality, that his money and his new life with Jess would shield him from the consequences. I had been prepared for this. While he'd been busy trying to manipulate the narrative in his favor, I had spent the past few weeks gathering evidence, things he never thought I would discover. Now, it was time to make him face the truth. Actually, I said, leaning forward with a steady voice, before we begin, I'd like to present some evidence of Adam's financial activities over the last year. I slid a thick stack of papers across the table, spreadsheets, credit card statements, photos of the receipts from the restaurants and hotels near Jess's apartment. I knew Adam's lawyer would try to downplay it, but I had everything organized, neatly printed, color-coded, and ready for inspection. Adam's face immediately changed. I saw the panic in his eyes as he glanced at the documents. He quickly leaned over and whispered something to his lawyer, who gave a slight nod before clearing their throat. "Your Honor, we'll need a moment to go over these," Adam's lawyer said. The mediator nodded, but I could see the frustration building in Adam. He didn't think I had it in me to fight back like this. He thought he was the one with all the power, the one who would get everything while I would simply crumble. But the reality was, I was the one in control now. The moments that followed were a blur. Adam's lawyer tried to poke holes in my evidence, but everything was airtight. The transactions I had tracked, the lies he had told, the promises he had made to Jess, it was all right there, undeniable. At one point, I even slipped in the conversation Adam had had with his mother, the one where he told her he couldn't afford the ring for Jess. I had saved the texts where he had promised me he was going to buy me one, and instead, he used that money to keep up his facade with Jess. "Everything you've built on lies is about to come crumbling down," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've learned how to protect myself now. You won't get away with this." For the first time in the meeting, Adam looked vulnerable. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His lawyer seemed to be growing frustrated as well, but they both knew they were losing this fight. It wasn't long after the mediation that things started to spiral out of control for Adam. His company, the one that had given him the cushy lifestyle he flaunted, found out about his expense report fraud. They had already been suspicious of his activities, but now, with everything out in the open, they were forced to take action. The best part? They didn't even have to press charges. They simply terminated him for his actions and blacklisted him from future opportunities. Adam had always been the kind of person who thought he was untouchable, someone who believed his success was built on his charm, his looks, and his ability to manipulate people. But now, he was a cautionary tale. His pride had cost him everything. Meanwhile, I kept moving forward. I continued to settle into my new apartment, building my life piece by piece. My new job had become something I genuinely enjoyed. It wasn't glamorous, but it was fulfilling. And best of all, I was making my own money now, money that was mine, not tainted by Adam's deceit. I started seeing a therapist, someone who helped me unravel the tangled mess of my emotions. The betrayal, the hurt, the anger, it was also overwhelming. But little by little, I was learning to forgive myself. I had spent so many years trying to make Adam happy, trying to be the perfect wife. I had put his needs first, but in the end, he didn't care about me. The most surprising part of all this, I had started dating again. It wasn't anything serious, just a few casual dates here and there. One of the guys I met through work, Matthew, the one I'd had lunch with occasionally, turned out to be a kindred spirit. He understood the pain of betrayal. We talked for hours, sharing our stories and our scars. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't in a hurry to jump into a relationship. I was just enjoying the idea of being seen, of being understood without having to hide my true self. Months later, Adam reached out again. This time, it was through a new Instagram account. His message was simple. "I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I read the message, my finger hovering over the screen. I thought about it for a second, but then I remembered everything he had done. The lies, the betrayal, the way he had discarded me like I meant nothing. I thought about the woman I had become, the woman who had clawed her way back from rock bottom. I blocked him again. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need him in my life anymore. The damage he had done was irreversible. But in the end, I realized that it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making him feel the same hurt I had. The best revenge was simply living my life for me, for the first time in years. Adam's mistakes were his own, and I was done carrying them. As for me, I had a life to live. I had dreams to chase, things to accomplish. And this time, I would be doing it on my terms. It's been a year since Adam left, a year since I started over, found my strength, and rebuilt my life. Every day, I wake up and feel a sense of peace that I didn't think was possible after everything I went through. The scars are still there, but they're fading. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. And for the first time, I'm proud of who I've become. Sometimes I still think about Adam, but I don't let him consume my thoughts anymore. He's part of my past, and I've learned that my future doesn't include him. I'm not waiting for some grand, dramatic ending to my story. I'm living it right now, each day a new chapter. And for the first time in years, I'm truly free.